boys.
Okay.
There it is. Sure, we are on. Let's see if we're on YouTube here. We are.
Yeah.
Excellent. Let's give everybody a second here to join. Happy Thursday, fourth quarter. Rough week. Lots of shit going on.
Yeah.
You're getting the yeses, you're getting the nos. A lot of fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's up, everybody in the crowd? We got a great show for you tonight. Our good friend Gary Bender is back on the show. We're doing it through Zoom. Had some technical difficulties last week, so I apologize for that. But that being said, let me change the view here to the speaker because we don't need to look at me and Craig the whole time. Gary, we're going to bring Gary on. Gary Bender, those that don't, my client years back, we've had him on the show before. Phenomenal insight from the CFO world. Not only is he a CFO, an owner of companies, but he runs a CFO forum group that he's ran for many years. So he has the insights of many CFOs around the country, different organizations, different industries, wealth of knowledge. I'm not going to give you his age, but he's still working around the clock like an animal, still sharp as can be. His brain is still working, so he's probably going to keep going. But that being said, Mr. Bender, Gary, welcome to the show, my friend.
John, welcome to be here. And I can tell you got kids older than you, so that's how old I am. But pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be back with your group. I look forward to it because I always learn something talking to you and Craig.
Yes, beautiful.
Awesome. Well, let's break out the crystal ball.
We lost a little bit of your video quality there. I don't know what you just did, but
I didn't do anything. But I saw.
Oh, there we go. There you go. Whatever the hell that was. Now
you got a little too far away from the camera. It blurred.
Okay, well, it doesn't get any better the closer I get, guys. But
all right, yeah. He knows his numbers, but he still hasn't figured out that technology side. But
that's right.
Craig, go ahead, buddy. You start out.
So hey, most people don't live under a rock, and so they hear about the Federal Reserve. We got an election in 12 days. Everybody's trying to figure out what's going on. You got probably 75% of the pundits talking about a recession coming. I don't know, ignoring the last two quarters, but that's a different world. And we got inflation raging, even despite having cooked the way they measure inflation. You know, if they measured it the way they did in the 80s when, Gary, you and I were younger adults, and it was 16% inflation. If you measured it that way, we'd have 16% inflation, but they changed it. You know, they moved the goalposts. So it sounds better, but it's still at 8.5, 8.7. And so looking forward, what do you see coming down the road as opportunities to have discussions with CFOs and CEOs about 2023, what the corporate plans are, what that impact is on growth, on finances, on employee counts, on restructuring? My favorite word. I see restructuring articles coming out of the woodwork now.
Well, I think you rolled 8 or 9 questions into that. Reality is, I see 2023 being worse than 2022. The headline answer to that question. Some CFOs absolutely agree with me. We're all very pessimistic right now. You talked about 8.7% inflation. I would have said 13 or 14 from what we see in the corporate world. We also know that the numbers that are reported every month are trailers, so they're going to get worse, even when the fundamentals get better. So there's a lot of negative overhang just from the news and the reality. But going back to the point, you're going to see some major declines in major industries. Housing is going to take a hit. Housing is going to take a 20-25% hit. It's 20% of the GDP with its drivers. So lumber is already getting cheaper. Home prices are dropping. Mortgage rates are going up. So selling prices are dropping. But the economy is going to be bad. So you jump to whether it's restructuring or what CFOs are worrying about. CFOs are going to have to look at cost harder because they can't run any more growth. They can't make up growth models. They're going to have to look at cost. They're going to have to lay off some people or cut back hiring, and their unemployment will go up to 6 or 7%. It'll double in the next year. People were very surprised with today's economic announcements that unemployment claims were as low as they were at 1.4 million new claims. They thought they'd be higher. So they think there's some reporting shenanigans going on today.
Well, don't worry. They came out, 12 days before an election. Gary, $100 bet to anybody who wants a bet out there that the GDP numbers will be revised down.
And I'll
after the
back
election.
I'll back your bet. I'll cover the second 100, Craig.
Yeah.
Anybody who wants to call, we're easy to reach.
So Gary, so you're saying CFOs right now at the organizations, we're looking at, okay, let's plan for what's coming up. And we think, we talked about this probably on the last podcast from a couple of years ago, that during the glory days, the growth phase is ridiculous. And there's, we got the money, we'll keep making more money. We'll deal with the increases. And now they're planning ahead and saying there's not going to be the growth there. So we can't spend as much ongoing because we're not going to have the growth. Now we have to look at cutting people before it even happens. Because I hear a lot of companies are strategically stopping hiring, maybe trimming. I mean, I spoke to one of my buddies in the sales side the other day, and they're already trimming.
I got a
just
call.
see any article on any of the FANG stocks, the tech companies.
They got hammered.
The everything bubble is over. Okay. So Gary, I would like to help, John and I try to help brokers, right? At least sound intelligent. Okay. Which sometimes is a real challenge. But what you just said earlier was it's not going to be growth that we're concerned about. It's going to be costs.
Yes.
So is it fair to say that if a broker wanted to sound a little intelligent, they could say, so the emphasis, as I hear it, is not going to be above the line. It's going to be all about what can we do below the line.
I'll add a second. That's exactly right. Point A is what can we do below the line? What can we do for cost?
Right.
The second one is you can't keep squeezing costs to employees. The good employees will leave. There's always jobs for good employees. The bad employees are going to get cut and squeezed. But employees are not going to take, increasing the co-pays, increasing the deductibles with crap.
Doing that for 10 years. I don't know that there's anything left on that.
Well, we just had a session for those that haven't heard about CFO Solution or CFO Forum. CFO Solution is an ebook. It's Google for Dummies for private company CFOs, as I like to say, coupled with Angie's List. So we vet and share best practices and best processes. And then we also recommend better partners to work with. Proud to say you're better partners to work with. And we work with some of your disciples, if you will, people that are good advisors and good brokers.
You have some acolytes out there and we appreciate it. And I'm getting texts from some of them saying, what's the line? What are you talking about? The line, above the line, below the line? Would you explain that to the
well, okay. Most people
ignorati?
talk about above the line. The top line is revenue. The bottom line is profits before taxes or just net income. So for years, people lived on almost double-digit growth. As long as you could grow, the market rewarded you. The growth hides a lot of errors and a lot of sloppiness.
No, doesn't it though? And you can borrow money at 3%. Grow.
Oh yeah.
Or buy your own stock back if you're publicly traded.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the line.
Thank you.
But the bottom line of that, we'll just build off that. The bottom line is revenue's not growing. If you're getting pricing gains, all you're doing is passing through.
At best,
inflation,
your margins are
are
getting
going down.
compressed. Even if you can manage to keep your revenue level, your margins are getting squeezed to death because of inflation, right?
So now let's take that from a broker standpoint. And you guys can correct me, but I'm going to guess in 2/3 of the companies, the brokers never get to talk to the CFO. They're talking to somebody in HR and maybe to the head of HR. And I don't see a whole lot of IQ difference between the middle and the top of HR when it comes financially or to understand, if I'm in a meeting and there's an HR person there, I have to do the same explanation I just did to your group of top line, bottom line, squeezing margins. What do you mean we're raising prices? Yeah, but we're getting killed by inflation. We're getting killed by attrition. We're getting killed by turnover and lousy productivity. And again, most of the time, the HR people do not understand what I'm talking about. And again, I talk to several hundred CFOs a month, either face-to-face in our face-to-face forums that we have, where we share best practices and help each other, or a national podcast that reaches conservatively 800 to 1,000 CFOs a month. So we bring up these topics, and there's no happy faces. But if we actually do sessions where finance and HR, we ask them to invite their HR people. We did one on healthcare in September, and we had to dumb it down to explain what's driving healthcare costs and what HR should know about it, and how finance and HR should work together. That was the polite messaging I did. Okay. The direct interest, or the direct message I sent to the CFOs is, you have to get involved in healthcare costs this year. I don't care what your org chart says, what your job description says. It's too much money. It's a double-digit increase. You've got to get involved, and you can't keep doing the same old status quo, ceteris paribus crap, because it doesn't work.
Look, that's a nice segue. Let me just do a little tangential segue here. So Gary, you're a CFO. You talk to hundreds of CFOs a month. Let me ask you, when you do a capital investment, do you expect an internal rate of return, a return on your investment before you decide to invest capital?
Yeah. There's enough turnover in this job without doing it really well.
Okay, you expect a return on your investment. So let's get a little granular. Well, by the way, you're in Jersey, right?
Yeah.
You Giants or Jets fan?
Giants this year. Never been a Jets
well,
fan.
they're 6-1. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever gamble on any of the games?
No, not
there's
too many
like
sharks
30
in Jersey.
states. There's like 30 states right now that have online gambling.
Oh, we have it here. Yeah.
On the elections here. Yeah. You can't turn on the television here in California. There's like 5 of them, and they're nonstop.
Yeah.
And so the reason I bring it up, real simple. When you gamble, do you filter a bet on the Giants versus somebody else through the same lens you do a capital investment, and go, well, what's my ROI going to be? Do you do that, or do you just
see? I don't bet,
you might
because
win, you might not.
I'm analytical and they're emotional. That's the difference. So, but to the point you're getting to is, of course, we look at that, and to do that, you need some facts, and you need you need a bookie you can kind of trust.
I mean, look, they don't call it gambling for nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So Warren Buffett says, when you gamble, you have no expectation of a return on investment. Okay. Because it's not the same as a capital investment in a real estate, an asset, a building, etc. So here's my question as we get a little granular. If you talk to all these hundreds of CFOs, manufacturing companies, you got lots of them, you got lots of experience since you ran manufacturing companies. Is this a safe assumption? You got payroll, cost of goods sold, healthcare budget.
Yeah, the only other wild card is raw materials. Within cost of sales, the big wild card is the cost of steel, aluminum, plastic.
Well, that's cost of goods sold. That's what I
know, but that's the real wild card.
Yeah.
To the point you're making, we kind of control payroll. We kind of control healthcare.
Well, here's my point.
Go ahead.
I'm calling bullshit on that. Right. So.
Well, that was kind of, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of. That's being generous.
We have no control over raw material. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. The steel company's going to raise their rates. What are you going to do? Right? You're going to try and negotiate. And sadly,
let's work that point. I understand what's driving the steel market. I have good data. I know my alternatives. I can choose to do certain things with steel or aluminum or plastics or components, because I'm smart enough to have good market information, and my purchasing people are experts in those couple of key areas. Now,
let's focus on healthcare, Gary.
Is my HR people.
We're going to focus on healthcare.
Yeah.
Every 100 employees at a 12,000 PEPY cost is a $1.2 million expense, average cost, right? That's low average, 1.2 million per 100 employees. Capital investment. I would venture to say 85% of CFOs are not involved in healthcare. We can only hope that increases next year as the pressure fiscally forces people to make it necessary that finance look at everything, including healthcare. Because here's my premise, 35 years in healthcare. You're self-insured. You own a health insurance company. You pay the claims from the profits of your company, and yet the CFO doesn't or isn't involved in the business. They might be informed once a year in an annual renewal meeting, which has been the same damn thing for 10 years, but they're not involved. And there's a big difference. I know personally I have investments. I'm like, I just want to be informed. I don't want to be involved. CFOs informed in a $1.2 million per 100 employee capital investment, but with no expectation of an ROI. So therefore, you spend $1.2 million on your third largest line item. It's your second largest operating business, and you have no involvement. And therefore, you're not investing in healthcare. You're gambling. You don't know the price of the hospital. You don't know the price of surgery. You don't know the prescriptions, the doctor, everything. Totally gambling. So that should be a shock to a CFO to have it framed in such a form and fashion that you go, well, how would I do it if I wanted to treat it as an investment? And see, therein lies the rub. First, you got to get involved, because being informed is costing you millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And in an 8, 10, 12x multiple like we've had, you cost your owner, who's your direct report, even more millions of dollars of their net worth, because you've abdicated responsibility for the third largest line item, second largest operating business, and you have no business in trying to run it, because apparently CFOs believe, as you tell me, do CFOs really believe there's nothing you can do to manage healthcare? You guys buy all the property and casualty liability policies, but you don't do dick about healthcare. Why?
Well, I'll agree with your number. 85% of the CFOs aren't involved. And I don't care if you're talking about a $5 million company. I've worked in $5 million companies. I own them. I've worked in $20 billion companies. It actually got worse at the larger companies, where they actually expected,
There's more to do.
Using Mercer as an advisor, they would never screw us. They're best. And I'm not picking, I'm using Mercer as an example.
Yeah, but any name anywhere there.
Any name, anybody you want to use. And as long as somebody trotted in the right consultants out of New York or Chicago, it was just a cost of doing business. It absolutely astonishes me that maybe 15% of the CFOs I know can explain what drives their healthcare costs and what they can do about it and recommend alternatives. And I'll suggest this to folks on the phone is, if you ever get in a conversation with a CFO, can you explain what's driving revenue? Your average price, your product mix, how much is export, how much is currency? They'll tell you till the cows come home.
Yep.
What's driving revenue. They'll tell you what's driving their raw material costs. They'll know how much waste they have and overtime and turnover costs and payroll. Ask them to explain payroll. And it's like, how can you keep your job if you can't explain the number 3 or 4 cost driver in your company? You can explain every other penny in the company, but not hundreds of dollars per employee per week. You can't explain it. Okay. And you expect to keep your job. And
because it's the way it's always been.
This is where the good broker becomes an advisor.
But they have to know, they have to understand the talking points to be able to have a conversation with the CFO. Without my premises, you can't sit there and talk about healthcare. You have to talk about the things that are important, like revenue compression and margin compression, mm-hmm. and cost of goods sold, inflation, and the turnover, and really hard to hire talent.
Yeah, recruitment and retention. Exactly. Those are
talk
the
to me
higher
about,
cost
talk
of your
to me
line
about
of credit
in the
going up.
groups, we could stay off healthcare tonight because people hear healthcare enough. But Gary, what's going on in these conversations right now? What are you hearing? What are the biggest 3 problems? What do they look like? What do they sound like? And then what's a way to pivot around it later into healthcare? But cover the problems first that advisors could start bringing up, whether it be the HR, whether it be the owner, or the CFO, because everybody knows about it.
Biggest problem is talent, finding talent and keeping talent. Every single company I know is looking for people. Even when you're trimming, even as people are retiring and maybe not replacing them, it is a struggle to find employees. So how do you attract employees? A great benefit plan is part of it. Okay, so that's one point, and we'll come back to healthcare. Second point is absolute the raw impact of inflation. Just, I don't even know how much my cost. I'm doing a budget right now for 2023. I have a board meeting on Monday. I'm actually trying to explain inflation. I'm fortunate. I've got an engineering company where 80% of my costs are labor, and I've got a union contract we just negotiated that wages went down for the first time in 15 years, and the benefit rate went down for the first time in 15 years in the New York, New Jersey unions, because the owners got together and basically convinced the union, you got to stop the runaway inflation and benefit escalations. So I'm really lucky in that, because compared to the rest of my CFOs, I just locked in my payroll costs for the next year and my benefit costs. Little plug to my boy Johnny. We actually reduced healthcare costs last year by doing best practices. So on my non-union staff employees, I've got healthcare under control. 7 years ago, I couldn't say that because I was victim to lazy brokers and I was a dumb CFO, if you will. But come back to that. People first, inflation second. Then they start making assumptions about pricing. And that's where it's dangerous, because they can't control pricing. So those are the three topics. If you're in a discussion, with the CFO, those are the topics that you can get on common ground with them. And with a little luck, you can figure out how to help them with a better benefit program that helps the employee retention. And it is possible to, I don't know, and you guys tell me, is it possible to hold healthcare costs flat? If you implement the right programs in a couple of years, can you go from a double-digit increase to maybe a low single-digit
Only
increase?
if you use half your
Look,
brain.
here's the reality, and people don't understand this, is healthcare is going up. It's always going up. Okay. The cost, inflation. I mean, if you can't have a conversation around inflation right now, what the hell is inflation? Let's break this down. If you didn't see our last webinar, if I get a knee surgery for $100,000 this year, and I get the same knee surgery next year, it's going to be $110,000.
Mm-hmm.
So the cost of the medical care, you're not going to get rid of that unless you change to some reference-based pricing, blah, blah, blah. But the reality, even if you're in reference-based pricing, it's going to be more next year. Number one. Number two, you're not going to stop the knee surgery. You go put your DPC on and all that stuff. You're not stopping cancer. You're not stopping heart surgeries. You're not stopping orthopedic surgeries. They're not being stopped. Okay. So the cost of the care is going up. Okay. Every year, everybody wants a raise this year, right? What kind of raises are getting handed out? So the reality is going up. Now, if you're paying X today, $1 million today, can you optimize that spend and mitigate the spend and pull some of the overspend in it and pharmacy and things like that? Yes. Is Hobbs and Carroll, boy, I think I need to have him come on and beat up some of the brokers like he beat the hell out of me when I went down there and called me an idiot broker. And he says, look, you guys think like it's never going up. Well, you're on the ladder. If I kick you down the ladder year one, you still got to go up the ladder. Okay. The ladder still goes up. Now you're going to get kicked back down. You may not go up as fast, but you're still going to go up the ladder because you're going to have procedures that you're not going to be able to stop. And the cost of the care is going to go up, apple to apple, if you're staying in a PPO, which 98% of employers are. And so, that's the reality, but, costs are going to go up. I mean, you really can't look at an annual basis, guys. You run a 5-year performer and you stack up their million at normal trend. You can be conservative 8% and take ours at 3 on max cost and trend that out on expected. And you're going to see the significant savings. 1 year doesn't tell the story, but
please, Gary, remember this. Tell your CFOs to run away from any advisor who wants to tout about their first year savings.
Right.
Okay. That's a mirage.
My advice is get an advisor and find advisors, or find an advisor who will talk to you about what they've done for similar size companies in your marketplace. If you're a 200 life company, hey, before I bring you on with a broker record letter, I want to talk to a couple of your CFOs who are about my size. And I don't care what business they're in.
Here's a nuance to it. They don't need to be in your zip code or the zip code next door, because they don't get cancer any different here in Jersey than they
Okay,
do
but I
in
mean,
Indiana.
but the New Jersey broker who's going to want my business, his client base is going to generally be within
Bunch of
100
guys that have
miles.
business all over. So, I mean, especially where you're at, I got some New York, I got some PA, I got some
Yeah.
Virginia, I got some Maryland, I got some Jersey. Okay,
But
so tell
I
them, yeah,
just want
don't
to
get
talk to their
stuck on.
CFOs. What's this guy done for you in the last 3 to 5 years? Has he brought you best practices? Has he been talking to you quarterly? Can you show me a couple of year analysis of what works and what doesn't work? Because we're all used to looking at year-to-year performance and 3-year performance. Don't tell me the promises for next year, because I can't hold you to it, but show me the facts for the last couple of years, what you've done, what worked, and I want to talk to that guy. And if the broker runs away, then you got a broker who's bullshitting you.
Yeah. What else is going on in the HR world right now outside of, I mean, I guess it's recruiting talent, but is it more important retaining? What are the things you're talking about doing to keep these people happy at this point?
Are they bending your ear on diversity, equity, and inclusion, or ESG?
No,
Not right now.
no. We're not quite in the liberal pockets. We're not in New York and Princeton and Boston. So we're not worried about it, to be honest. Maybe we should be, but we got enough other problems, Craig. We can't count it. We can't, but we don't have to do that journal entry of what that's, that doesn't fit into our ROI calculation. We don't know how to deal with that soft stuff.
Talk to me about some of the CFOs that, we talked on our last podcast. I thought we had a good breakdown is the difference between a CFO, or, strategic CFO, an accounting CFO, the controller, the finance director.
Okay, let's go up the high.
Tell me those profiles.
Let's go up the food chain, and it's generally going to start with the controller. If you've got $10-20 million companies, you probably got a controller that does everything accounting and banking, doesn't have time to do risk management in either the facility, the trucks, or healthcare. They're just too busy trying to close the books. They're not strategic. They're educated in accounting. Okay, they live their life in the rear view mirror. Okay, and they don't look at the Wall Street Journal very often. They don't listen to the podcasts that talk about what's coming down the road in the next 6 to 18 months. You move up next level as director of finance or VP of finance, kind of interchangeable at companies. They start to have a bigger vision. They probably have a controller working for them, so they do have more spare time. But these tend to be the MBAs from decent schools. They have a broader education, and they're in the boardroom. They're in the CEO, head of sales, head of marketing meetings where the controller's in there just to report the good news or bad news, who's over budget. The controllers tend to be the cost cops. They're there to find other people that didn't do so well and throw them under the bus. You move up the food chain, you jump over the VP and the director. The CFO should be helping other functions improve their processes, cross-functional improvement, understand the 3 to 5 year vision of the stakeholders, the board, the CEO, privately held, or the stakeholders. CFO has a much broader vision. And then you get to the level that I say 5% of the CFOs in the country are, and I call them the CFO plus. They're the co-pilot of the business. They're the trusted advisor to the CEO and the board. They get into trouble in any function where they think they can help. They stick their nose into HR aggressively. If they're smart, they work with the head of HR. If they're smart, they work with the head of marketing, and they bring in analytical skills and data management skills to help marketing put some fact behind their gut feel. And they help salespeople develop proposals, et cetera, to go get new business or keep business or raise prices. But that's 5% of the CFOs in the country. So we call them the CFO pluses. And they're kind of the brains and the vision of the company. And the pay range in that is 5 to 10x.
Yeah.
What's going on in the owner's world right now? Are they just focused on growth? And
they're focused on survival. They missed the period to sell to the private equity firms. Private equity firms have paid a fortune in the last 5 years. They've paid higher multiples. They've done earnouts the way, if you wanted to sell your business, you could kind of sort of name your terms. If you wanted to work another year or two, you wanted to sell 80% of your company, the PE guys wanted to buy your business, had plenty of money. Now the PE guys have plenty of money and they've really stopped buying because they can't find any well-run companies. And if they find a decent company to buy, you start seeing burned out CFOs and CEOs and owners saying, if I sell this son of a bitch, I'm going to Florida. I'm not hanging around for a year or two to work with you guys because I'm not going to get any more money out of you. The deal structures have changed. So acquisitions are going to slow down dramatically in the next year and a half, 2 years. They're already down, but they're going to.
So they're going to be involved in these decisions maybe they weren't involved in. How does advisors
only if the CFO
pull them
only
in?
if the CFO brings it to the owner's attention. HR will never take it to that level because they can't talk at the alternative level, the impact. We'll use Craig's analogy before. You're spending $1 million, it's going up 10%. Well, they hear from all their other HR peers that 10% is good, and it's you've done better than the market. You go in and tell your CEO and the CFO, hey, it could have been 12 or 14, but we've had a great relationship. I got it for 10. You ought to be thanking me and giving me a bonus. They don't even bring up the concept that we should be doing something else.
Believe that the industry has conditioned these poor C-suite execs, especially the CFOs, to believe that a less bad rate increase just under the benchmark, which is total make-believe BS, but just that's the best you can hope for. And so the CFOs, what's the dichotomy? I don't remember, back in the day, I remember CFOs did healthcare and then something happened. I don't know if it was the late 90s or Hillary Care in 94 that scared them all away, but you guys all buy liability, D&O, all the P&C stuff. HR doesn't buy that. CFOs do. Why? Casualty is nothing more than what's the probability of risk and what's the magnitude of the loss? Should we insure it?
Yeah.
I would argue healthcare is the exact same thing, except they don't believe there's anything they can do.
Well, I always make the argument, Craig, and I think I learned it from you. When HR buy, the only insurance where you don't have a deductible in your life is your employer health insurance plan. In your homeowners and your personal car insurance, you always have deductibles. Got a $1,000 deductible. If it's a 10-year-old car that your kids
right, you don't have a $20 copay for new windshield wipers.
Yeah. And you don't even think about submitting claims for $500 or $1,000 because it's not worth it, and you're going to pay for it anyway. I always use this analogy, and it scared the hell out of the broker when I would do and John's heard this, and it's a true story. I sat in front of 100 employees at a pizza lunch one day with my broker next to me, and said, "We're here to talk about healthcare insurance, but just set your pizza and your soda down for 1 minute. We don't really have healthcare insurance. It's very simple. We pay these guys a couple $1 million a year to pay our claims. And we pay them an administrative fee and a profit margin. And then if we pay if you guys incur more than a couple $1 million a year in claims, and they want $1 million of profit and overhead to handle all the crap that we don't want to go through with Blue Cross and the hospitals and the dentist, okay, then they come back next year and our $4 million bill turns into $5 million. There is no insurance. Like if your kid wrecks the car, your premium goes up $300. If you have a $100,000 NICU baby, yeah, we're going to pay the $100,000. I can get into all the gory details, but to my employees, we don't have healthcare insurance. So if our costs go up from $4 million to $5 million, that's $1 million we can't pay to employees in compensation. Because I look at you guys and you cost me X dollars in compensation and Y dollars in benefits, and X and Y can't exceed this number or we go out of business. Yeah. And you could have heard, a hummingbird in that room of 100 people.
Yeah, that doesn't, what? Yeah. I mean,
what do you mean?
That's why I call it gambling, Gary. I mean, you hire a bookmaker who sets the rates, and if they're wrong, they raise them. Yeah. And you pay it.
Yeah.
You pay, they don't take any risk. The employers take all the risk. And somehow over the last 35, 40 years, they've convinced employers that no, this is the safe way to lose your money gambling. It is the most fascinating brainwashing I've ever seen.
Yes. Yeah. And keep in mind, the brokers never want a meeting with the CFO to explain their alternatives. They want to be able to raise their rates 8 or 9 or 10% and exclude a few more drugs and exclude a few more services and tighten up the network. But they never ask for a meeting with the CFO. Ask John. He was scared to death the first time he met me. He just somehow he caught me on a good day because he told the truth and he answered my questions.
Yeah, I fought in the conversations. It's a boxing match. I was talking the other day. I was on with one of our employers, CFOs, who we saved $2 million in 4 to 5 years for them, and it was a complete boxing match in the renewal meeting, defending the results.
Yeah, but what have you done for me lately, John?
Defending that the ladder, you have to go up the ladder in a post-COVID year of, expected trend 17, it coming out at 14% utilization through the roof. And, oh, by the way, your numbers are artificially low to begin with, and your dependent population, your overall belly button count has gone up 30%, but your employee count's gone down. So you're insuring more people, you have more claims, you have to pay more for healthcare, and it's a complete fist fight through the renewal. It's fun, but that's East Coast, and that's what have you done for me today? So you better be prepared in the renewal meeting to explain to them everything you've done before you ever get into an increase. If you're an advisor, just want to vent one thing. If you're an advisor and you open up the meeting and you pull the spreadsheet out and you go to the bottom number, you're an idiot. I mean, you're just so inexperienced. I'm saying it to make in front of some people, to hit yourself on the head and go, shit, I'm doing that. It's wrong. That's not what you do. But that being said, what else we want to cover today, Craig, before we let this gentleman jump? I know it's late over there for Gary.
We got 36 minutes in here, and I think people got a lot of insights. Hopefully they took some notes.
Yeah, take some notes. Gary, we'll have you on again in the first quarter, talk about your national program for CFO Solutions advisors being able to create a forum in their market, piggyback off your brand, and you help with the forum, and they fill the seats and kind of get their own thing going. So
yeah,
talk more about that.
John, you and I've done that where your brokers, I'm working with one of your brokers now in one of our startup company where, we just find the right brokers and we can help them. A lot of times I'll just offer to, let me talk to your prospect CFO. I'm glad to explain why these guys are different, why advisors are different than brokers, what you should expect. Mr. CFO. And again, it's the CFO and me on the phone. Sometimes the HR manager's on the phone also. I'm having a one-on-one with the CFO just about what have you seen, what's your experience been, and what's this broker suggesting to you. And I'm going to tell you if he's blowing smoke up your tailpipe or if they can actually deliver A, the analyses, and B, the recommendations that you never heard before, because they're out there. And usually the CFOs are anxious to talk and want to talk for an hour. And I'm glad to do it to help your advisors out.
Beautiful. Well, hey, look, we appreciate you joining us. We're going to end it there. Everybody jump. I know it's fourth quarter, but he's exhausted. I am. I got to get back to work here.
Yeah.
It's only 7:30. We got to keep going. Craig's lucky enough to be on the West Coast.
Okay.
Gary, good words. We'll
Gary.
see you shortly.
See you, Craig.
And we'll be in touch. Thanks everybody for joining us. Tune in
See
every
y'all.
week, every Thursday.
Here for the
6 p.m.
Phillies.
Eastern.
It's our only hope to have a winner. So
No
we'll
Phillies,
see
no
how
Phillies.